Hey everyone, Ariel Adams here with aBlogtoWatch. Please subscribe to our videos on YouTube and like this video if you find it useful. This is a review of the Undone Urban Tropical. These are 3 versions that are possible in the Tropical collection. There are more. These just happen to be 3 of them. The point of the Tropical is to create a dial that has a look which is inspired by a certain type of vintage watch which has been aged by the sun. There's an article on aBlogtoWatch right now which talks more about what tropical dials are. They're not per se tropical, it's just sort of a name for a specific type of aging related to the sun. So when the sun hit the dials of mostly certain vintage Rolex and Omega watches for a certain number of years, those dials would discolor. They would become bleached per se by the sun, and there was various different types of results that a lot of collectors like. So Undone, having people that founded it who have a history in both restoring and collecting vintage sport watches like Rolex and Omega, thought, hey, it would be really great to create sort of a similar fashion look for those tropical dials in an affordable watch by Undone. And I think that the result is pretty nice. So the first thing you can see here is that compared to other Urban cases, there's a new tachymeter style bezel, clearly inspired by the Omega Speedmaster. You can see it on the side there. Actually really nice finishing for a watch at this under $400 price point. There is a beveled edge here on the bezel, which is polished. It has a brushed surface here where the numbers are, and I think it's overall a great look. My really only complaint with this watch is that the mineral crystal, which as you can see has sort of a vintage style doming, does get a lot of reflectivity. The contrast on the hands is actually good enough so that despite the reflection you can read the dial, but it is one of the things that I would like Undone to address. These watches are available with a solid case back or with a display case back. Now Undone made this for aBlogtoWatch to demonstrate some of the customization features here. So they happen to take the aBlogtoWatch logo there, make it kind of vintage and distressed like the dials. And you can see here that there's a smoked exhibition case back seeing the quartz movement underneath. The movement is the Seiko Instruments VK64. And this is the Mecha Quartz, which a lot of people like. Undone has now taken and created a horizontal layout for the subdials. And you can see here that that has a nice sweeping motion. They took out the subsidiary seconds hand because they didn't want to have any ticking seconds hands on the dial. So if you want the seconds, you can actually have a sweeping motion there. If you don't want it, then you just have a clean dial like that that doesn't have any seconds indicator. So this is one version of the dial. There's 3 different tropical dials that are available. Here's a slightly different one. I don't actually have all of them here to show you. This watch is one of the customizable versions. This is actually one that Undone wanted to make exclusively available to the aBlogtoWatch audience. It comes on 2 special straps I'll show you that I think are really cool. I named this the Akira after the Japanese cartoon movie from the late 1980s because it matches some of the colors by the lead character Kaneda, which I think is really cool. So you can see this is the black version of the case. There's some red hands, which is a customizable feature. And these straps, here's the other one, which I think is really cool. See that red horizontal stitching there? Really nice strap, actually. And there's additional customization options for people that want to go on the Undone website and use their customizer, which is sort of part of the deal. The Undone name is right here, just under 6 o'clock, under where the date is. In fact, the date is something that not everybody wants on a dial like this, because if you're really going for the vintage theme, then they won't have a date, but the date is useful. So it's one of those things where, yeah, you can complain that the date probably be better left off to really explore the theme, but then again, there's other customers that really want it. This is the standard strap that comes with the Urban Tropical. It has a little bit of a sort of aged look. It's really just the paint here, but you can see how it fades from darker to lighter here. And then there's these big portholes that look quite nice. This one, minus my name on the dial, which was another attempt for Undone to show off some of the customization, is really sort of one of the stock looks you can get. And I think it's very, very handsome. You don't see a lot of watches at this price point like this. Undone did a lot to make sure that the dials have a good look to it. And if you look closely, there's a speckling which is done with the paint, which offers that aged look. And there's different types of tropical dial looks that Undone could have emulated. This is one particular look. The case is still 40 millimeters wide. Feels a little bit different, a little bit more substantial because of this type of bezel, but it's still a very universal size that I think works quite well. Undone offers 2 straps with each of the Urban Tropicals, and I'm just showing you some of the other straps here, and they all have this here we go, this easy adjust link here, so you can just use your fingernail to undo the spring bar, which makes it easy to change out the straps without any tools. So I'm just showing you, take it off and put it back on there. Like I said, my major only complaints about this watch are the fact that the crystal doesn't have more AR coating. These are pre-production models, so it might be that the models that come out do have better AR coating. That is a frequent thing that happens with pre-production models, is they miss things like the correct AR coating on the crystals, sometimes luminant and things like that. So that's something that I have to take into consideration when I review watches, because I don't always have the final ones. At the end of the day, these are faux patina, and there's some collectors that are kind of weirded out by that. They say, oh, if you want an aged watch, you have to get actually an old watch, and I can completely understand that. But again, this isn't like buying a Rolex and artificially aging it. This is explicitly made as a aged fashion watch. So there's not really deception here, and I think it's sort of the deceptive part that people don't like. This is a fashion watch. These watches cost between $345 and $375, and it's inspired by a look. You know what you're getting, and it's very unpretentious. And for that, I think these are really nicely done. So again, this is the Undone Urban Tropical. Comes in a few different dials. There's 3 main dials, and then other customization features, just like other Undone watches. And you can see the full review on aBlogtoWatch. Thanks.